Hello, I'm Matías Jonsson, and I am a guest choreographer for Dance Spectrum 2023. I am from Houston, Texas, and I'm a recent graduate of Carnegie Mellon University, where I studied physics and computer science. I began my dance career originally in competitive ballroom dancing, sometimes called dance sport, but my current focus is the emergence, evolution, dissemination, and appropriation of oral tradition partner dances in and from the Western Hemisphere. To understand the background for the piece you are about to see, let us consider the historical context of the Western Hemisphere as colonized territory. Almost all of the Western Hemisphere was colonized by France, Spain, England, or Portugal, and the primary languages spoken in each part of the Americas today are a testament to that history. For example, we are living in a predominantly European ancestry former British colony and speak English. Other countries in the Americas speak primarily Spanish, French, or Portuguese, and indigenous languages are often repressed. However, people of European descent aren't the only ones populating the Americas today. We cannot forget about the indigenous peoples. Some parts of the Americas still have a lot of people of indigenous or mestizo descent, like Bolivia, Ecuador, Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, and Peru. In contrast, the United States, Uruguay, Argentina, and many parts of Brazil are classic, but far from the only examples, of countries whose racial whitening policies effectively obliterated indigenous culture. These policies even have a name. They're called blanqueamiento in the Spanish-speaking Americas and branqueamento in Portuguese. It is important to keep in mind that many experts say settler colonialism is intrinsically genocidal. The Europeans also brought with them millions upon millions of slaves from the coasts of sub-Saharan Africa in order to build up their societies and industries cheaply. Africa is the most diverse continent culturally, ethnically, and linguistically, and by far the richest in terms of natural resources. And the slaves had widely varying culture, music, religion, and language traditions. They landed in the Americas in key ports like Bahia, Brazil, and the Hispaniola island, which is modern-day Haiti and the Dominican Republic, before being shipped to other parts of the Americas. The term African American in this context is not limited to people from the United States, but rather from the whole Western Hemisphere. There are many nations in the Americas that are majority or in large part African mulatto or Zambo ancestry, including Haiti, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Brazil, Colombia, and many of the Caribbean islands. So why does this context matter? Each of these groups of people has a rich and complex history and culture, and music and dance are a significant part of culture. Contradance, minuet, gavotte, waltz, and polka are just a few examples of European partner dances or group dances that were danced by the upper classes in various parts of the Americas. The African slaves also brought with them celebratory traditions of song, dance, and rhythm, originally primarily for religious purposes. With each area of the Americas that had slaves, different but overlapping subsets of African cultures were present. These cultures mixed in fascinating, condition-dependent ways, sometimes creating new secular dances that could be danced in public, or more often going underground by creolizing with Christianity to hide in plain sight when their sacred religions were banned in different ways by the Catholic or Protestant slave owners, in a process known as syncretism. The African and African diaspora dances contain many polyrhythmic natural movements of all parts of the body, especially the hips, that are often called sensual movements because they stimulate the senses of the dancer. However, Eurocentric cultures throughout history have conflated sensuality and sexuality, as the body is comparatively very sexualized in a European worldview. Natural or sensual movements from African diaspora dances have been called vulgar and suppressed by European and Eurocentric cultures for centuries due to this cultural difference. The African and indigenous cultures of the Americas observed the various stately court and ball dances of their oppressors and created their own creolized versions of these partner and group dances in every part of the Americas, especially in the mid to late 1800s as slaves were being freed. Some examples are tumba francesa, machiche, lambada, lindy hop, pasillo, contradanza, tango, foxtrot, samba, all of the dances you will see in the upcoming performance, and innumerable others. European dance teachers like Pierre and Doris Lavelle, and many others like them, observed these dances and rather liked them, but didn't like the movements that they considered vulgar, so they brought their own modified versions of these dances back to England and France, where they were standardized into ballroom dances. However, their versions of the dances lacked an understanding of the meaning of the dances in the cultures from which they came, and often had egregious errors. Some errors are as extreme as giving the dance the name of a totally different dance in order for it to sound more exotic. Additionally, some of the movements and rhythms had pre-existing names in their original contexts that came from centuries of history, and they were entirely erased since the European dance teachers didn't speak the languages, didn't spend long enough immersed in the culture to realize what they were missing, and never bothered to amend their mistakes later. Over time, these whitewashed versions of Western Hemisphere African diaspora dances came to make up 14 out of 19 standardized competitive ballroom dances, and both the dance and the music you see today are very far removed from their original form. All of the dances you see on Dancing with the Stars, except for Waltz and Viennese Waltz, were danced first by members of the African diaspora in the Western Hemisphere, but of course in a very different way than what you see on TV. Today, in the competitive ballroom world, the so-called Latin American dances are performed almost exclusively by European dancers who are, without exception, wearing some degree of required brown face. The top coaches and insiders will tell dancers it is to prevent you from looking too pale under the bright lights, but outsiders often see it differently. Themes of domination and explicit choreography are also very commonplace. The piece you are about to see is called The Evolution and Dissemination of Afro-Cuban Dance Ideas. The piece is a walk through the life of one of the most interesting Afro-Cuban dance ideas, from its early inspirations in the mid-19th century to the dances it inspired in other parts of the world in the late 20th century, along with some of their outside influences. As you watch this piece, reflect on this thought. In Eurocentric cultures, dance is a form of art, while in African diaspora and Latin American cultures, dance is a part of life. Many African languages don't even have a word for dance. The dancers in this performance had an immense challenge to prepare for this piece, and they have risen to the occasion tremendously. With great excitement, and without further ado, please sit back, take a deep breath, and prepare to take a plunge into the past. Welcome to Cuba.